Hello, come back kids, and welcome to our session on double bubble maps. I want to make sure that everyone is aware that we are recording this, so if you join us later, you need to know that this is being recorded. We'll be putting it up on the Haiku website for all of us to refer back to later as we're working. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let me get my screen share started and we will get started. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about the double bubble map. Now, if you've never used a double bubble map, you may not know this, but a double bubble map is used when we compare and contrast items. So we always start with two circles and we put ideas in the circles. So in our first circle today, we're going to put summer. And in our second circle, we're going to put winter. So we're going to start by thinking of ways they are similar or different. So you might say hot. Hot would go with summer. So we're going to add a circle attached to summer that says hot. And maybe you would say that summer is when we go to the beach, right? I like going to the beach in the summer. Maybe you would say we have to wear sunscreen in the summer. That would be an important thing to remember, especially if you live here. All right, so sunscreen is kind of a summer thing, right? All right, so we're putting down ideas about summer. Let's see. Also when I'm thinking about summer and winter, I think about those are seasons, and that is something that they share. So that's a similarity. So they're both seasons. I could put that in the middle and I want to connect it to both of my circles. All right, so now we've got a similarity, we're going to continue exploring summer and winter, and I know you guys know this stuff. I wanted to start with a topic that we're all familiar with. So we've got our two topics, summer and winter. On the outside circles, we put the ways they're different, and in between the two circles, we put the ways they're similar. All right, so let's see. Winter, we could say cold, right? Cold. That would be a good thing to say about winter. Maybe you like to go sledding in the winter time. All right, sledding. So we're putting ideas on the outside that are differences and ideas in the middle that are similarities. Summer and winter are both about 3 months long in most places. Depends on where you live, doesn't it? All right, so we've got similarities and differences. Now you might notice that I do not have the same number of circles for differences between the two. I only have 2 on winter and I have 3 in summer. Totally okay. This map is yours, so you make it your own. It needs to suit your purposes, and you can put as many circles here as you need or as few as you need, unless your teacher gives you a specific requirement that they want a certain number. All right, so you can see for our double bubble map, it's kind of similar to other graphic organizers you may have used in the past. You may have used the one with the 2 overlapping circles, and in the middle you put how they're similar, and on the outside edges you put how they're different. This one is very similar to that. All right, so we've got our topic, we've got our similarities in the middle, and on our outside edges we have our differences. Now the one thing we haven't done yet is talk about the frame of reference. That's this lovely purple frame. Now if you're drawing your own map, you have to draw your own frame, not a big deal. But inside our frame of reference is where we want to discuss how point of view might affect what we put on our map. So we are going to start out by thinking about, okay, so in this case, I live in California. So my location really affects what I think of as summer and winter, because notice I put 3 months long in the middle as a similarity here. But it's possible if you live somewhere in a colder climate that winter might last a lot longer than 3 months and summer might be shorter than 3 months. So my point of view is affected by where I live. So geography affects the seasons and my point of view. Okay. So I would put that in my frame of reference so that everyone can understand my point of view and where it comes from. All right. So another thing that we might put in our frame of reference is some kind of evidence to support what we're saying. So for example, when I say that summer is 3 months long, whoops, sorry guys, I just put that in the wrong spot. I want this to be in my frame of reference. There we go. Okay, so when I say that summer is 3 months long, in California, the seasons are each 3 months. Each season lasts 3 months. Okay, so that may not be the case in other places. And I'm just going to kind of put this in my frame of reference close to where I have that fact. There we go. In California, cold is a relative term, right? We think of, you know, if it gets to 30 degrees, we're frozen. But there are some places where the temperature frequently gets and stays below 0 in the winter. So I'm going to put 30 degrees or below. And I want that to go over here next to cold, because that does have a lot to do with my perspective, my point of view. There we go. Okay. So you can see that we talk about how our point of view might affect what we put on the map. And in a double bubble map, perspective is big. It's all about how I see things. So that's an important thing to put on our map. We can also make sure that we include evidence for the facts that we put on our maps as well. All right, so now that we've seen how a map is done, let's move on. And I want to ask you to take a few moments, if you would, and you can do this with a partner if you have someone at your site, or if you're at home, that's okay too. I want you to create the map you see here. You're going to be comparing and contrasting iPhones with Android phones. And if you don't have experience with both of these types of devices, choose any 2 brands of technology to compare, or any 2 technological devices to compare. So perhaps if you've never had an iPhone and an Android phone, maybe you've seen an iPad and you've seen other types of tablets. Totally fine, as long as you're comparing 2 different types of technology. All right, so you're going to take a few minutes. Remember, your differences will go on the outside edge, similarities will go on the inside edge, and you want to make sure in your frame of reference that you include what economic factors affect this topic, and also how could social background affect a person's opinion. So those questions are both kind of aimed at helping us really narrow down our point of view and think about our perspective. And your teachers might ask you when they have you do maps with them to answer critical thinking questions. So you'll notice when we do critical thinking questions, they're not yes or no answers. These are answers that take a lot of thought. But once we have completed our map, it will help us be able to better answer these questions. And then we can hold an academic conversation with our peers and with our teachers where we really get to discuss our ideas and our opinions. So this map is a really important stepping stone to helping us be able to express ourselves and be ready to start writing about our ideas. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to pause for just a few moments, and I'm going to ask that you take some time and work on creating your own map. So we'll take about 5 minutes. I don't think it'll take any longer than that. And let's get everyone going on their map. All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be back with you in just a few minutes. All right, come back, kids. So we've had a few minutes to work on our maps. Does anyone have any questions? No? Okay. So just as a sample, we've got an idea of what your map may look like over here. So this includes a map that's almost complete. So we've got some differences for iPhones over here: expensive, excellent camera. They have Siri. iPhones are immune to viruses, so they're supposed to be a little bit safer from hackers. They put out a new one every year. Both phones have an AI assistants. Oh, you know something I forgot to put on here is that they all have cameras. Ah, okay. So all the phones have a camera, right? And you can text and call on all of them. Texting and calling. And you can purchase apps, right? Okay. Oh, yeah, that's right. You know, on an Android, we use Google Play, right? Oops, sorry. On an Android one, we might use Google Play. There we go. And when we have iPhones, we use iTunes, right? Not iTunes, what is it called? Anyway, they call it something different on iPhones. Clearly been a while since I had an iPhone, right? Okay. Another thing I might add to this is if I wanted to give some evidence to support my statements, then maybe where I said expensive, I could put cost ranges from $300 to, I know you can spend thousands on an iPhone, several thousand. There we go. Okay. So we could put that, and we want that to kind of go over here around the fact that it's expensive. All right, so we put that in our frame of reference. So we can add a detail to support any of our facts in our frame of reference. Sometimes your teachers might want a detail for every fact. Totally cool. And then we've kind of given an answer here to our critical thinking question. This might also be the essential question from your lesson. If you're really slick, you might have figured out that sometimes teachers do that. They're right in the book. All right. So it asks us what economic factors might affect this topic. I put the iPhones are more expensive, but many phone companies will finance and break the payments up over the course of 2 years, but not everyone can afford a phone. So that would be a factor that might affect this. Now notice that I'm not doing huge paragraphs here. I can write more if I have enough time to do so. But remember that this is a launching pad for my conversation. So this is just to help me kind of think through and get some ideas started so that I'll be ready to speak to and write about this topic. All right. So I did not get a chance in our short 5 minutes to answer this one. How could social background affect a person's opinion? But I suspect that you guys might know something about that one. So I'm going to leave that one for now. And we're going to move on, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your work on this particular one. And I will ask that you show your teacher your wonderful work when you get to class. All right. So the next map we're going to make is we're going to talk briefly about summer vacation versus the school year. So I want to remind you, similarities go in the middle. So what might be a similarity between school year and summer vacation? I'm going to say the month of August, because in the month of August, we have both vacation and school. So I'm just going to put August on here. There we go. All right. During the school year, I have to adhere to stricter sleeping patterns. Stricter sleeping patterns. Otherwise, I can't get to school on time, right? And during the school year, I don't get to choose what I study. No choice in what I study. Often the case, right? Okay, let's see. What else could I say about the school year? Oh, I have to buy office supplies, right? Purchase school supplies. There we go. Okay, what could be something else that's similar to the school year and summer vacation? I still have to travel, right? I can travel during both. One might be for fun and one might be commuting. Oh, I could put that in the school year. Commute to school, okay. Commute to school. And here I might say during the summer, I travel to fun locations. Travel for vacation. There we go. Okay, what else could I say about the summer vacation? That's my beach time. I don't know about you guys, but I am at that beach as much as I can during the summer. Okay, so summer vacation, beach time, right? Okay. What else could we say about this summer vacation? Oh, trying to beat the heat, right? Ugh, sorry guys, didn't click that one right. Okay. Beat the heat. Okay. All right. So you guys have another example to go by here, remembering that we draw our differences around the outside edge and connect them specifically to the topic we're discussing. We have our similarities in the middle, and they are connected to both circles. All right. Then we can put in our evidence. So when I said beat the heat, my evidence would be that it is often over 100 degrees. So I'm going to put that over here. Often over 100 degrees. So that is an example or evidence to support why we have to beat that heat. Ugh, not fun in the summer, right? Travel for vacation. Let's see, what could I put for that? Let's see. Okay, I'm going to put that in my frame of reference here, and I'm going to say that sometimes I fly, cruise. Okay, a dream about the cruise. It's a fun dream, right? Okay, so maybe fly, cruise, or drive. There we go. So those are ways that we could travel for vacation. Yeah, there we go. Awesome. So I've got those ideas around here. August. Oh yeah, I said that August was something similar because it's a calendar in month in which we both are on summer vacation and go to school. All right, stricter sleeping patterns. Oh, for evidence there, I could put must go to sleep before 1 a.m. There we go. So that would be definitely a school year thing, right? In the summertime, we get to stay up, do what we want, but not as much during the school year. There we go. Okay, so we have our two topics. Around the outside edge, we have circles connected that describe the differences for each topic. In the middle, connected to both circles, we have our similarities. We have evidence to describe those things, to support our opinion, sorry, in our frame of reference. And then we'll often answer some kind of a critical thinking question. So perhaps here we might have the question, what factors could affect my point of view? All right, so in this one, it's asking what factors could affect my point of view? And that would be in my frame of reference. And I might even put an answer. So maybe I want to put my answer down below it, not a problem. We'll scoot in a sec. So maybe my point of view could be affected by the fact that I love school. Or maybe my point of view could be affected by the fact that I have a long commute. Maybe my point of view is affected by the fact that summers are over 100 degrees and winters are so much cooler. So maybe my point of view is affected by where I live. Because in other places that may not be the case. Okay, so I'm going to pop this over here. All right, you're just not listening to me. Okay. Nope, not listening. There. Okay, so I've got my critical thinking question and I've got notes about how I can answer that question. You might choose to write those in complete sentences when you're doing your map so that when you go to speak with your teacher, you have a whole sentence in front of you and you're ready to speak. If you are able to speak from notes quickly, that's okay too, provided your teacher is all right with you writing it in abbreviations like I've done here. All right, so I think that we have a really good idea of how to do these maps. So I'm going to be asking you guys to complete a map on your own for homework. This is the map you'll be completing on your own this week. So you're going to be describing any 2 items from your assigned reading this week. If you're reading a novel, you can choose 2 characters. So concept 1 would be the first character, concept 2 would be the second character. If you're not reading a novel, then you might actually consider 2 different historical time periods. Maybe you want to compare and contrast the Middle Ages with feudalism, same kinds of concept. Maybe you want to compare and contrast the Middle Ages with the modern era, or perhaps you want to find 2 different movements from history and you could compare and contrast those movements. You can choose any 2 items from what you're studying this week in class. If you're doing math, maybe you want to compare and contrast 2 different types of problems, different types of functions or equations. Any 2 items can be compared. All right. If you're doing science, you might compare and contrast 2 different processes, like you might do 2 different ways that cells reproduce. So it really depends on what you are studying this week. You've got freedom, but your teachers know what you're studying, and they also know to expect you to come up with a double bubble map comparing 2 items from your assignments this week. So remember that you're not only just comparing those 2 items, you also need to have in your frame of reference some kind of critical thinking question. So because your teachers don't know what topic you chose to help you develop a question, you guys are going to have to kind of be a sleuth, a detective this week, and you're going to have to kind of hunt up a really good question. Some of you may be quite good at developing your own questions, and more power to you, awesome. Some of you, like me, may sometimes struggle with, well, I understand these 2 concepts now, but I'm not sure what critical thinking question to choose or how to write it. Not a problem, you guys, because in your textbooks, every single textbook and every single lesson has an objective or an essential question that you're trying to answer. So that could be your critical thinking question. Or perhaps you want to ask a question that connects what you're studying with something else you studied. So if you're comparing and contrasting 2 characters from your novel, your question might ask how the struggles of these characters is related to your unit theme. Ooh, it's creepy. That was a big leap, right? Okay. All right. When you're creating these questions, there's just a couple of rules. Over here, I've got them highlighted for you. Oops, no, I don't. Okay. There are a couple of rules. You cannot use yes or no questions, and you can't ask a question where the answer is just a vocabulary word. These need to be deeper questions. Think of questions that incorporate the words how or why or in what way, so that we're not just identifying one item as our answer. We have to really put some thought into this so that when we're done, we're ready for those really heavy academic conversations, because your teachers are going to be looking forward to talking with you about this, and they might even provide you opportunities to speak with some of your classmates this week so that you can collaborate with them and get some really good ideas from each other about how each of you is thinking about what you're learning this week. All right. So we've been talking about our double bubble maps. You've got your first homework assignment from me for this week, which is to compare and contrast 2 items that you're studying and create and answer an essential question in your frame of reference. And the next thing we're going to talk about, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to review one more time. I know we've done this before, but we're going to talk about grads really fast because we need to make sure everyone understands our school-wide learning outcomes. All right, so on here, I've got what grads is, and I've broken down each of the components of grads. So if you recall, GRAD stands for growth-minded, resourceful, actively engaged, determined, and socially responsible. Now I just have to go quick, short little bird walk with you guys. I have been focusing so much on grads this year that I'm seeing it everywhere in my life. This morning, I saw my dog do something and I looked at him and I said, hey, you're using grads. So he had this great new toy. You guys may have heard of it. It's called a Kong, where you hide treats inside the toy, right? And the dog could not figure this out. He got his toy that he was trying to get the treats out of stuck under my bed. And he's looking at me and he's looking at the toy, and he tried a couple of times to get it from one direction. He couldn't get the toy, and finally he comes from a different direction. And of course, giant dog, so he's like lifting the bed. The whole bed is like lifting up on his back as he creeps under it, thinking he's this tiny dog, you know. And he manages to get to the toy finally, and then he gets stuck under the bed. And I see him, he's trying to decide, do I put the toy down and get out easily, or do I keep the toy and really have to work at it? Long story short, he managed to keep a hold of the toy and find a different way to get out from under the bed. But I was just impressed, because not only was he looking for alternate solutions, so he was being resourceful, but he was also learning new ways to do things, which is growth-minded. And he was incredibly actively engaged with this toy because he loves it. And he also displayed, sorry guys, a little bit nervous, got to slow down a little bit. He also displayed some determination in there, because he could have given up at several points. He could have dropped the toy and gotten out from under the bed easily, but no. He was determined to solve his problem the way he wanted to solve it, right? So he did all of those things, and he was socially responsible, because when he was done, he put his toy away. I'm like, yay, I love my dogs. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So we've talked a little bit about what grads is. Now what I'm going to ask you to do this week, and your teachers are expecting this, you're going to create a double bubble map. Here we go. Let me show you the double bubble map. Your double bubble map is going to compare someone you know. This can be someone you know personally. It can be a famous person. It can be anyone in your life. Someone you know who you think is a good example of grads, and someone who you think is not an example of grads. You're going to compare them. Remember that our differences will go along the outer edge and be connected with a line to the circle they're describing. And our similarities will go in between our two circles and be connected to both concepts. So this in itself is a bit of a stretch. I want you to choose only one of the grads characteristics. So you don't have to do all of them. You can choose one. So if you're choosing just one, please make sure that it's not a grad characteristic you've used for any of your other Thinking Maps assignments if you've done others with us already. All right, so you can see in here in our frame of reference, we've got just a couple of things for you to do. I want you to explain your point of view. So how does your point of view affect what you're putting on this map? Because if you're describing two people, clearly there's always two sides to things, and maybe your perspective is shaped by your relationship with the people. Maybe one person is someone you're really close to and the other person is someone you don't know well. That would affect your perspective, right? Because you don't know them well, so you're maybe going to be a little bit less forgiving. Yeah, so that would be something you could put in here to explain your point of view. All right, and the last thing I need to tell you about this week's assignment is that you need to make sure you provide evidence to support what you say about each person. So this might be a short story or just an example or a word or two. For example, if I put someone as a non-example of grads, and I put on here that they complain endlessly about problems. But you know what? That might be a better explanation, huh? Okay, so if they're a non-example of grads, I'm going to say if they're complaining all the time, I might say not solution oriented. That means they're not looking for solutions to their problems. They're just complaining or seeing themselves as victims. And so then here I would say complain always about problems. Okay. I think I should say always complain about problems. That seems like better grammar. Yeah, I'm going to change that. Always complains about problems. There we go. See, I'm using my grammar here as well as everything else. All right, let's get this over here. There we go. All right, so I've got my evidence here to support my opinion here. All right. When you are done with your map, be prepared to talk off the map and explain it to another student and to your teacher as well. So you want to make sure that you're using vocabulary you're comfortable with. If your teacher has some new vocabulary words that you're trying to learn, you can try them out here. That's totally cool. You just want to make sure you check with your teacher if you're not sure to see if you're using the word correctly. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you have a better understanding of what a double bubble map is now. And remember that these double bubble maps help us to compare and contrast items. And our similarities go in the middle between the two concepts, and our differences go on the outside edge. We should always have a frame of reference. And our frame of reference is going to tell us something. For a double bubble map, we'd like to hear about your perspective, your point of view. How did that affect what you're talking about? And we almost always try to incorporate some kind of evidence to support what we're saying, because now that we're in high school, we have to use evidence to support our opinions. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you had a wonderful time today learning about double bubble maps with me. I will see you next time, and happy double bubble mapping. Okay. Let's see if I can make this bigger. There we go. Okay.